NBA slate. It was last night was my first really bad night of the year, and honestly, I still don't feel all that bad about most of the process. What I do feel bad about is when I identify something, especially in an earlier game like Robert Covington, and I was still far below the field on him, but it just bothers me when I make a play that I don't feel good with because I want to try and cram extra stuff in, and it just I snuffed it out. I felt like it was the wrong idea, probably the right thing to fade. And I ended up with a little too much in the lineups that would have been good for me if I literally pivoted to anything else. Also, we had Kamara starting later, which we didn't know about. There's always going to be stuff that happens early in the season. So the longer you can delay, always good. But just not my slate. How'd you do, Sheets? And then
remember, we go back to 12:02 p.m. yesterday. I'm like, Robert Covington, really? So hey, maybe we should just go right back to 12:02 analysis. Ignore Curry being out, ignore all of it, and ignore everybody being out, and just fade Covington. But nonetheless, I did okay because I don't know whether you were there right after you left, but I built my monster lineup on FanDuel for live for everybody, and it cashed. No,
that's awesome. I love that.
That's always a good thing. And so I made a little bit of money, nothing great though. I completely ignored champagne, which was probably not the smartest thing in the world to do. So that was the end of that. And I had a whole bunch on DraftKings. I had a whole bunch of Theo Maledon as well.
Yeah, that hurt too. So that one I did like, and it still hurt.
So that was kind of that was the end of that. Let me look real quick and see what I had on the FanDuel thing that was interesting. I don't think it was actually particularly interesting. I just built it really live. I'm not putting in a freaking code. I'm just so sick of FanDuel. You press to say you're human, pressed all, whatever.
Oh God, I know. Everybody else has been complaining about it too all over Twitter. And the weird part is, for some reason, for me, it finally stopped. But literally, it was every time I tried to click on the page for like a few weeks. It was just so irritating.
So tonight it's going to be it's another wild one with a lot of injury news and a lot of stuff.
A lot of back-to-backs.
It's going to be one of those slates where I think that you should get like an extra bonus for coming in first. So I'm going to go live at 11 o'clock to see who the lucky people are.
Well, I will hopefully join you. I did have a family thing I was going to try to do, but I'm going to try to. I should be back by 8, and I'll try and join you at 11 Eastern.
And according to the initial runs here, there's all kinds of action in those in one of those, or maybe even two of those late games. So it should be fun. Should be fun sledding, so to speak.
Absolutely. And what we do have is there's 8 games tonight, but it's important to note that 2 of these games are nationally televised on ESPN. Those televised games I think have a better chance of, if the stars are going to be sitting, we'll know earlier.
Right. That's true.
So that's a big advantage, because those games are irrelevant because Joel Embiid is in one of those games, and against Boston, I don't imagine he's going to sit on the back-to-back in that one. But if it was another team, I think he would, and if it wasn't a national televised game. And I think that if the Lakers weren't playing on national TV tonight, maybe they would consider sitting one of AD or LeBron on the back-to-back.
And Boston has both Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis questionable. So.
Yeah. So but again, those, and the good news is I think we can hope to have most of that stuff before lock. I can't promise that it'll all happen, but I think that there's a good chance that we do. All right. So with that said, you ready to get into game by game?
Yeah. So game one, I joke about the Harlem Globetrotters games, but this one is particularly possible because Dallas is Harlem Globetrotters, and remember the Harlem Globetrotters always played against the Washington Generals. So Dallas against Washington, and Washington themselves are not the greatest defensive team in the world either. So you would think that you'd want to do something here. So where am I going to start? So Luka at 12-1. I mean, I'm not going to say no if you want to know the truth. On Washington, Kuzma seems to be the guy, 8,100. So if you want to play Luka or Kuzma from that game, you could do it. As far as value goes, I'm really not seeing anything that's a great kind of point per dollar play or anything like that. Like Kyrie's 8,800. You want to try to talk me into that, you can try. So it's just basically those 3 main guys for me.
Yeah, I think that it's the same thing with these guys. It's Luka or Kyrie. And honestly, if there was a matchup, I know it's a big slate, so you don't have to do that. But if you ever wanted to, if we had enough value, you wanted to, this could be the kind of matchup where they could both get there. Although I would probably just pick one. And I have Kuzma and/or Poole as sort of a similar category. Poole finally had a decent game the other night. But this is just a nut matchup, so I think you want to get all kinds of exposure. I also really like Tyus Jones. I think Corey Kispert is an interesting play. He's been getting minutes and sort of shooting dependent, but Avdia, all of these guys are interesting to me. So and even maybe a thin play of Koulibaly or Daniel Gafford is not a bad idea too. I think this game is just really, really good to target. Unfortunately, it's the first game of the night, but it's one of those where we don't have to use the value early in the game. We can use the plays we want. For me, again, one of Kuzma or Poole, maybe Tyus, and then run it back with Luka or Kyrie seems like the most logical way to treat this game. And even on a back-to-back, after getting smashed last night, Dallas, I have a feeling this game is still going to be flirting with a very, very high over. Yeah, definitely a game that you want to have as one of the priorities to go with some of the late stuff, I think. All right, you want to start off Toronto?
Yeah, so I guess those Anunoby and what's his name, and Gary Trent are probably both going to still be out. Yeah, they're both doubtful. So we got to think about whether we want to play those Toronto cheapos again. But you know what? A good game the other day. I'm pretty sure that Boucher had a good game. Boy, he really does it in minimal minutes, doesn't he?
Yeah, like 20 minutes. Yeah,
he really does. I don't know if I would do that again. But as far as value goes, these guys usually just kind of show up on my board, but they're just not for some reason. What else in Toronto?
I'm very sorry, but I have a doorbell that I have to answer. Sorry about this. My son's not up yet.
So Siakam is probably my best from Toronto, but I don't really even like him so much. And then you got Giannis at 11-1, who I don't know. It seems like a good enough price. Looks like he's going to be 5% owned. He hasn't really put huge games together yet. But first of all, he's probable. That's fine. But yeah, actually, that's not true. I mean, he's got a 60, a 70, and he's got two 70s. Not the greatest matchup in the world, but Anunoby being out, I mean that makes it a little bit better of a matchup for Milwaukee. So I don't know, maybe play Giannis here at 11-1. I'm actually not opposed to that at all. So Giannis in Milwaukee, maybe Siakam for Toronto, and that's pretty much all I have.
Look, the price is. I think the price is very fair for Giannis. Very it's a very reasonable price. I also think that it's kind of strange because the prices are a little bit higher that we're going to ignore. First, one thing is Milwaukee's they're close to Dallas, man. They're close to the Globetrotters these days.
Really?
They cannot defend at all to save their lives. They're also not playing well. I mean, they just got beaten down again the other night. Like they really look bad defensively, and it's kind of strange to see nobody really project well for this Toronto team that in a worse pace matchup. Everybody projected well, and now the prices are a little different. You have Barnes Barnes was $9K, he's 9,200. Siakam went from 77 to 87 after scoring 700 fantasy points the other night. I still like the idea of getting to some of these guys. I don't know about the value; it doesn't really stand out to me. I think you could make an argument for a lot of the value, but hopefully we get better stuff. I think that it's just going to be Scotty Barnes or Siakam for me, or Schroeder, and I think all three of those guys are firmly in play. And if you want to run Giannis, if you're able to. I don't think it's the worst idea. I prefer the Dallas-Washington game, but I think you could get a little action in this game. My initial thoughts, though, is I would probably lean on the under and that it's not a great fantasy game. But even at not a great fantasy game, Giannis at 11-1, it starts to get, by the end of the year, he's going to average around 60 fantasy points. It's kind of getting like we should probably just price and force him. At the same time, that's true for a lot of players on big slates that are good plays. And one of the early trends that we've noticed with these big slates, though, nobody's gotten it right. All of the other stuff has been busting. The total scores are in the low 300s. The 2 and 4 game slates have had higher scores than the 10 gamers and 11 gamers, which just didn't used to be that way. And it's just because there's so much speculative stuff early in the season. But anyway, all this to say that I do think that Giannis with one of those two is a viable option today. Although not quite a priority, I do think by the end of the day, one of the Toronto spend-ups, either Barnes or Siakam, will probably be on my priority list. Kyrie was just listed questionable according to Cos Campbell. I have a feeling like he only played 25 minutes yesterday on the front end of the back-to-back. They got smoked. So we'll see what happens with Kyrie. But of course, we'll have that information before lock. And if he's out, I think you're just playing Luka as your spend up. I don't think you're thinking about it.
If he's out, do you have to play any of the other guys like Hardaway or anything like that, or no?
I think they all become like viable, especially because of the matchup. Hardaway would probably get the biggest boost along with Josh Green. I would probably lean on Josh Green as some potential value, although he can be very frustrating to roster. He also he's a good real life basketball player. He just can be very frustrating to roster. And then maybe you could look at a long shot Jaden Hardy play, who's kind of gotten back in the good graces. And we all know that guy can put up a million if things go right. All right, moving over to New York and Atlanta. We don't get Trey in MSG tonight, though, Sheets.
No, but we get him first time off the birth of his daughter.
Yeah.
And even though it's not in New York, it's against New York, and I think he's a great play tonight if he plays. I don't think he's going to get owned, and I mean, again, nothing really from the projections is leading me this way, but I don't know. It's enough narrative for a guy who actually had to sit his last game. I think he'll play 40 minutes in this game if he feels like it, and I kind of like him in this spot. On the Knicks side, I mean, Randall looks to be the best player, but I'm seeing like 15% ownership on him. I don't know if I need to do that on a big slate.
I mean, look, we don't know about Barrett. If Barrett's out again, just load up these guys. I mean, or play Brunson. This is a better matchup too. We have Brunson and Randall. Both would become like top plays on the slate. I think that you could argue if you're not playing Brunson that you could play quickly. And also, obviously, as we know, Josh Hart will stand out as a really strong play at 5,700. It's a little pricier than you want to pay for him, but you could even include guys like Grimes. So it's really going to depend on that one. And then obviously Atlanta depends on whether Trey plays or not. Assuming that Trey does play. By the way, just want to point out one thing. That DeJounte Murray ownership being only 30-something% yesterday is egregious. Like it was, I was shocked. I thought in the high buy-ins he would be like 80% owned. I could not believe DeJounte Murray was 30% owned. It was like the weirdest thing. And obviously, look, if Trey's out again, we just go back to the same guys. Bogdanovich, Murray, to some extent, Bay and Hunter. And I think those are all very viable. So really two big pieces of news we have to wait on in that one before we can really assess it, I think.
I think he's going to play, and I think he's going to smash.
That's great, but we need to. It still only matters with the Knicks side. The Knicks side is the more interesting side either way. If Barrett's out.
If Barrett is out, yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Boston, Philly.
I mean, anything could happen here as far as who's in.
I don't think so. It's a nationally televised game. It's on ESPN. It's a rival. They're the two best teams in the East. They're the two best records in basketball. I don't think that we're going to see. I put it this way: I think if there is resting, we're going to know about it well before lock.
The good news, yeah, okay, that's true. The good news is we'll know well enough, I guess. Like you said, for if we can hope that if it is a nationally televised game, we'll at least get some kind of idea. For no other reason, so that the pregame show they're prepared, right?
Mm-hmm.
So assuming this game plays, at full strength, I got no problem with Embiid. I mean, they could put 75 guys on him. I don't care. I can still get 70, especially on national televised game and all that stuff. So I'll put it this way: I think I like him better than Luka if Kyrie is in. You know what I mean? Like if Kyrie is out, it's kind of hard to not make Luka your best play, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from that, I have no problem just keep going back to Embiid. I like playing him, especially in tough matchups. Again, I don't think it's exactly time for them to bracket him yet.
Right.
When that happens, it's kind of rough. But and then maybe nationally televised game. I don't know if it means a lot to him, but you've been telling me that that Maxey has been really showing out. Oh my, he's 9,500.
Yeah, they raised his price.
Yeah, okay, sorry about that.
I mean, look, it doesn't mean that he can't get there. It's just I think it's really, really tough matchup.
It's going to be with somebody else except for me. So, I don't think I'm going to get to. Well, I'll get to the Boston guys. I think if any of those guys are out. But aside from that, it's probably just Embiid for me.
Yeah, I hate to just agree again. Like, I think it's probably just Embiid, and like everybody on Boston is priced just enough to where I could say all of them are fine, but none of them are standing out for me. If I had to pick one, it would probably be Jaylen Brown or Tatum, either one. And Embiid is my favorite, but I don't see myself getting a ton of exposure this game. I actually prefer Luka to Embiid tonight. Embiid, by the end of the game last night, looked done. Just for what it's worth. He looked like he couldn't play another minute. He just was so slow and so tired. I still think he plays. They haven't even announced questionable or anything. But it just is. I don't know if we're going to get the best showing.
Maybe we shouldn't play him then. If you're telling me that.
Well, I mean, but again, though, it's Boston. He'll get up for it. They're at home. They didn't have to travel or anything. But I'm just saying that's just the way that it looked last night. He looked like he was winded. Anyway, we can move on.
So DeMar DeRozan is out for Chicago.
Yes.
Says that he tends to a family matter. I think that the actual story is that all his family bet on him in DFS in his last game. And so now I has to go apologize to him during the family matter. 37 minutes from DeMar DeRozan. I mean, at 7,400, you probably take that usually.
Yep.
Just for once in a while, 3 for 14. Yikes.
It's an ugly game.
So give him a nice day off. I mean, it's pretty family matter. So given the fact that it is a family matter, I mean, or whatever it is, I mean, he's out. I was expecting I shouldn't say expecting more because listen, they're all showing up as good plays. So all these guys are playing. So Vooch, the aforementioned Patrick Williams, 39% ownership. You don't have to talk to me about that. Kobe White, 32%. Zach LaVine, the most obvious, I guess, and he's only 23%. At least that's why I have him now.
Mm-hmm.
So all those Chicago guys are going to be in play. And then, some smart person once told me that if you're going to stack, guys from one team because of value, you might want to play someone on the other side. So Paolo Banchero, I guess, 7,700 me my preferred guy. And yeah, seems like a pretty pure type of game to play.
Yeah, the problem is both teams play slow and don't play. Their defense, I should say, they don't give up a ton of points and they don't play very fast. The Orlando side, I do think Paolo is probably the most appealing option. I have no problem with the other guys. Remember, it's a back-to-back for them. Jalen Suggs, Anthony Black, Cole Anthony, all those guys are interesting. I don't know if they'll play Gary Harris on the back-to-back here. I'm just a minutes thing that I'm trying to figure out. But if Cole Anthony, all of these guys, somebody could easily have a game. Remember, there still is no Fultz in there and no Wendell Carter. So it's not like they're playing at full strength. So I like the idea of getting one of the Orlando pieces to run a back if you're going to play those Bulls. And, Patrick Williams looks like the best projected play. I think that for me early on, I don't think you need to set a rule, one of Patrick Williams or Torrey Craig, but I think it's that's probably the way I'll treat it is just play one of those two. And I will then – I have Vucevic a little bit ahead of Levine, but not much. Honestly, I actually think that this might be a really good Levine spot. So I like both of them quite a bit. And if I'm not playing them, I'll be playing Kobe White. And I actually think if you're going to play one on the other side, you could play a Kobe White, one of Williams and Craig, Vucevic on one side, and Ben Carroll on the other side, or something along those lines. It's actually pretty big news today whether Alex Caruso plays, because that just opens up even more. And I think that just more minutes for the guards. It just makes Kobe White more solidified. Potentially, it would make Ayo Dosunmu move more in play, and it actually helps Patrick Williams and Torrey Craig. So we'll see about Caruso being in. Unfortunately, we may not have that news till later. But a low total, but a game that definitely has some appeal because of the no DeRozan and no Carter and no Fultz.
I agree with all that.
All right. Next up, Minnesota at Phoenix.
Minnesota at Phoenix, otherwise known as the where fantasy points might go to die. Minnesota, they had 205 last night against Golden State. They actually came back, I think, from 10 down to win that game. And Anthony Edwards off to a pretty slow start, but he did well enough, I guess. Maybe not for 8,909K, but he played 36 minutes. I'm just not getting to too much in here. I mean, you have two teams that I think are going to just kind of maybe take the air out of the ball, sort of. I don't know. I'm just really not getting too much. This is the closest thing I have to a pass, I think, today.
Yeah, I hear you. When do we start playing Bradley Beal is the question.
Okay, fair enough.
Just there's some point like, okay, 7,100 starting to look a little bit appealing. I understand that everybody else is there. It's a tough back-to-back to go play this matchup for Minnesota. However, they just look so much more complete as a team than Phoenix does. Look, if you ask me, Cat is too cheap. He went nuts last night, but I don't know if I really want to do anything. I'm probably going to be stubborn and just go right back to Anthony Edwards. Had a down game yesterday. Didn't really take the ball, take control of the game. It was more of the Cat game. I have a feeling that Edwards comes back right back to his 50+ fantasy points tonight, and I think Anthony Edwards is a tremendous play. He's all I've got in this game as of right now. I do think at some point, smaller slates probably, I'm going to start looking at Bradley Beal a lot more, though. All right. Yeah, the Lakers or Portland first?
I have Portland, Cleveland. So the way I actually got there in the Monster last night in FanDuel was I basically stacked that Portland Utah game, and it did pretty nicely actually.
Yeah.
Even given the fact that Jeremy Grant, I mean, he didn't really get the minutes. He only played 27 minutes. But I'll tell you who never comes out of the game is the Shaden Sharp. I mean, he never. I think he played 57 minutes last night. Let me see.
Have you watched him much? He looks like he could potentially become a superstar.
Yeah, and he does look good out there, and he's literally over 40 minutes a game.
Yeah,
he's
just playing a million minutes, and he does everything too.
And but the big thing right now is actually looks to be the absence of Darius Garland. Okay, so with him out, all these Cleveland guys, I mean, look really, really good. So Karis LeVert, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley. It's not the exact same thing, but Jared Allen, Max Strus, all the Cleveland guys become really, really good plays if they weren't already in this matchup. And assuming that we can't assume this, but Brogdon's really he's banged up. I'm just presuming he's going to continue to not play. Excuse me. Then you can go back to the Skylar Mays again as well. So I would go back to the same guys I was playing on Portland yesterday. The Shaden Sharp, Skylar Mays, what's his name? The DeAndre Ayton. I think along the lines of that Chicago kind of stack situation, this one's even better, like you said, because Portland, they can kind of crank it up a little bit and give LeVert a little bit of an opportunity to go usage, and give Mitchell a little more opportunity to go to usage. That side of the ball can crank it up as well. So this is a pretty obvious game to kind of go after.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to figure out is some of the projections in this game. I really feel like I'm missing something. Is there somebody speculated? I get maybe it is just time just to say, okay, you know what? We just play some Jabari Walker all the time because he does have a huge ceiling. He doesn't play many minutes. He put up a big game yesterday. Okay, so I'll start with my Cleveland side. I was going on the Portland. I think that Cleveland, this is a big part of the priority with no Garland. I do want to just add though, we've had no Mitchell sometimes this year. We've also had a lot of the other guys who are out still, and it's really hard to it might be a little bit overrated, some of the value, even though I like it. But the way I've got it, I've got one of Mitchell or LeVert, unless I'm stacking. I think it's okay to play both of them, but I'd rather play one of them. I have Allen and Mobley split up, and then I have Struss just as a really good play in his own right. That's pretty much how I have Cleveland rated. On the Portland side, the Jabari Walker is definitely a piece of value that I'm looking at. Also, it's I prefer the late value, even if it's suspect to the early value. I think it's a fair price for everybody on Portland, and I think Kamara is the other late value that I would like to get exposure to, and maybe have to switch if I need to. I don't really love any of the main plays from Portland. I also think that there's variance with their minutes, especially on the back-to-back in a season that's going to be a throwaway season.
That's true.
So I'd be worried about maybe a little bit about Jeremy Grant, who I thought was 70% owned last night on FanDuel.
He sure did.
he was like nuts. But Kamara starting last night was sort of the thing that got my attention a little bit, and I think that they're gonna play this kid a little bit more, especially because they were competitive. So not really sure what I'm gonna do on the Portland side, but I do think I'm gonna get some stuff here for sure.
Okay.
Sorry, moving on to Sacramento and the Lakers.
Yeah, just wanted to see something real quick. I didn't want to see what I did in that lineup I had yesterday. Okay, so I did have these. Jeremy Grant was, in fact, let me pull this up here. Jeremy Grant was, in fact, like you said, he was 65% owned on FanDuel.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of these other guys? Sharp, but yeah, all these guys are really chalky on Portland. Olynyk was only 10%, and Collins, that's right there, right? Oh, Shea, that was the thing I built live. That was it. I did the Shea Wembanyama.
Oh yeah, Shea had the big one, yeah.
And Wembanyama didn't keep up, but
well, I mean, the team didn't keep up. They were down by what, 40 points?
Yeah, but Shea was really weird. Like he only played he didn't get his second quarter run until there's 4 minutes to go in the quarter.
That's pretty usual with what they do with him, by the way. They play him 12, then 4 to 6 usually.
Well, his last 4 minutes of the quarter, he scored like 16 fantasy points.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Okay, so Sacramento, LA. I mean, is this also a nationally televised game?
Yes.
So I mean, normally I would say, I would say imagine, but it's pretty, obviously even likely. But you still have to consider that maybe AD or LeBron, one of them would be out. Play both of them on a back-to-back. I don't know, but like you said, home game nationally televised. I don't know, maybe they both play. So. There's that. I'm not
barely, but for what it's worth, they smashed Memphis last night. LeBron played 22 minutes. Anthony Davis played 26. And
so they're good to go.
Probably they should be good to go. And they're both, for the first time in like forever, they're not officially questionable.
So De'Aaron Fox is 8,300. I think that's a very, very good play. I guess that's all I have from this. Let me just see. Do I like do I like AD here? Look, do I like LeBron? Yeah, they're fine. I have them below the other spends, but they're also $1,000 cheaper. I do have them both at 5% ownership or less. So why not? You play Fox with one of these dudes. I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that Fox is the one thing that stands out for me. I don't mind the idea of taking a shot on LeBron or AD. I mean, AD had 52 in 26 minutes last night. And this is not exactly a tough matchup for him either. So that's kind of interesting. I think that a most interesting play in this game is Malik Monk. With Fox backs, obviously it takes away some stuff. But it's not just a revenge thing. It's not just he was a Laker thing. It's that they have trouble guarding wings, and he can play himself into like 45 fantasy points. And I think that he's like an interesting sneaky play on the slate, but mostly it's just going to be Fox as a priority because there's so many priorities I have from my list, just going through this first look. I have Luka or Kyrie, the whole Dallas-Washington game, Kuzma or Poole. But again, all of these guys are good. They're just a matter of which to prioritize. I like Tyus Jones. I like Randall, whether or not Barrett plays. If Barrett's out, that opens up everything on the Knicks. Patrick Williams or Torrey Craig for value. One of Vooch, White, or Levine at least. Anthony Edwards as a low-owned, to me, a really good play. But he'll be overlooked because of guys like Donovan Mitchell, who's a great play. But if you play Mitchell, I'd say play one of Mitchell or LeVert unless you're going to get a stack of that game. Mobley or Allen, unless you're stacking that game. I don't think I'd play those two together. And then Struss is a really excellent play on his own. Then you get Kamara, Walker for late value that you can do some swapping around, and De'Aaron Fox. It's a lot of names, but those are the guys who are, the 14 names that I'm going to be building my lineups with today, at least in the early going, until we get news that none of it matters anymore.
That's right.
All right, Cheats. Anything else before we stop doing this? Then we jump into we'll turn it into we'll start a football show.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. All right. Good luck today, everybody. We'll see you at 6 Eastern.